I've owned this car for over a year now and somehow only just managed to put 1,000 Ks on it. And that is because every time I drive this car, something else seems to break. But in this video, hopefully all of that comes to an end and we finally get to take this thing for its first little mission off-road. And that can only happen when I fix the 5 things on this list. And let's just say we're not off to a good start because the engine already sounds like this. There you go, definitely. That is all coolant dripping. No way, no way. If I didn't foreshadow something going wrong before, this is cooked. The plan for this video is first we're going to have to do a full swivel hub rebuild, including wheel bearings because they are absolutely cooked. I do have the stuff for front and back, all genuine Toyota, but I have no idea how to do the back, so we'll see how we go for time. But the front, definitely getting done. It also has to go for a wheel alignment and some caster correction blocks, but I won't be doing that because they're do it while they're doing the wheel alignment. And funny enough, even though I spent 16 grand on a new engine rebuild, it has started making funny engine noises, which is great. It only really makes the noise when you're like driving through the gears. So if you're kind of just cruising, it won't make it. I'll go up a hill now. I have a slight idea what the noise could be, but we'll have a look together and we'll see if it is right. So I don't know if you can hear that. There you go, definitely. I'm pretty confident that I know what is wrong based on the fact that the car inside the cabin smells like the exhaust. So I'm going with that there is probably some sort of exhaust leak. I can definitely see some of the gasket, a lot of the gasket, but I'll show you what I mean. So there you can see the bubbles coming out and it is even smoking a little bit. But that's not a me job to fix. That is a job of the people that rebuild the engine. Warranty claim. So to get ready for today, I've watched a couple YouTube videos, so I'm basically a professional. I'm gonna do this completely flawlessly. That was a joke, I do not mean that. This is my first time doing this, so I'm not expecting it to be graceful. I'm expecting I'm gonna make a lot of mess, learn a lot, and at least if something goes wrong with these on the track, I will have some sort of an idea of how it all works. And for the most part, this will not be a tutorial. This will just be me doing it and showing you what I'm doing, kind of. And then you also just get to laugh at me making all the mistakes along the way. I'm back talking about how cooked everything is on this car. We can have a little listen to the wheel bearing. There's a lot of play in that. Now, I actually need to try to strip the whole hub down so we can replace it with the brand new part. These things here are the cone washers, and I should just be able to hit them out with a hammer and a brass drift. And clearly that is not working, so I sprayed them with some WD-40 because I assume this job has never been done like the rest of the maintenance on this car for the last 30 years. And then sure enough, a couple taps, they popped out. And if I pull off the locking hub housing, bearing nuts and washers, then be able to slide the hub and rotor assembly off, I should just be able to undo all these bolts, slide the seal off, and remove the dust cover. You would think, right? I'm wrong. So I kind of broke the brake line. On this car, the brake lines run through the dust shield. Stupid, I know. And my lines were all so rusted that I had to like snap them to get them off. But now the cover is off, so I can soak this in WD-40 and it should just spin off. More WD-40 and like 300 hits with a hammer, it finally started to come away. And I gently lever it off with a screwdriver and save the family jewels. But this is where it gets fun because now I've got to deal with 4 handfuls of grease, remove the CV, deal with even more grease, loosen the top and bottom caps, and then remove the steering rod. And this seal here is so old that it leaks constantly, so I'm glad it's getting replaced. And then the rest of the assembly should just pop off with some help from my favorite tool. Yes, we got it! And now I've got my bucket filled with grease-covered parts. I'm gonna use 2 cans of degreaser and a wire brush to clean them all up, and then mask up all the faces and use the hammer trick to have a nice sharp edge. So I can paint on some rust sealer, prime it, and hit it with a couple of layers of paint so it looks fresh. And back to the important stuff. I'll remove the seal with a pry bar, bend the pry bar, and then I'll use my brain and my seal puller to pull the seal out. Quickly tap out the old bearing races and chuck the new ones in the freezer. And then take my new oil seal that was pre-frozen and drive that thing in flush. And then absolutely smash the new top and bottom bearing races in. Grab the hub rotor thing, tap out the inner and outer bearing races, chuck your new frozen ones in, and I'm sure you can guess what I do next. I'm very sorry if that was just a lot of information in a very short period of time, but that's everything I had to do to take them off, and this is the mess I ended up with. Finally time for the part that I'm actually looking forward to, which is putting this all together. I've got all the parts here laid out nicely, and I'm just gonna speed run putting it back together, hopefully quite quickly. This is like my 3rd day working on this. don't even want to admit how many days later it is since I started. But I have done a lot of stuff between now and then, not just on the car. But it's all there, it's looking nice and clean. The only thing that's not on there is the brake caliper, but that is because I have the new 80 series line to skip that hard line. And I also need to do the other side, so I'm gonna have to bleed the brake. So I'm gonna do that just before I put the tires back on. So now it is time to do the other side, and I'll save you the boringness of doing the other side, and just know that it's gonna take me a long time. So that turned out to be an absolute mission, but it is now crossed off the list, and we can be confident, hopefully, that when we go and test this thing off-road, nothing in the steering, swivel hubs, axles, all that stuff is gonna break. We should be good on that front if my workmanship wasn't absolute garbage. But seeing as how bad this engine's history is, we're gonna be installing something that I really want so that I don't have to pay for another engine rebuild. Because we all know how bad the engine temp gauges are in these old cars, even new cars. They kind of only creep up once the problem is already occurring, which for an engine that's not designed to do 110 k's an hour, you kind of want to know when you're pushing it too hard. So down here on this 3D printed gauge cluster I made, I will be like fixing this later down the line when I make my center console. I have an EGT gauge, which is helpful, but once again, like if you're just cruising up a hill for a couple minutes, this is going to creep up pretty quickly. So it's not the best indicator of that you're pushing the engine too hard. I've also got a boost gauge which just came in here, but the one that I am installing now is this one up here. It's called an engine watchdog, not sponsored, just one of my friends that has a 60 series said that he really recommends it. It's an engine temperature alarm sensor. So you bolt it onto the outside of the block wherever you can put it. And then based on your own temperature that you set, an alarm will go off once it reaches there. So you can set it a little bit lower. And then once your engine approaches that temperature, you can back off and slow down a little bit, or just turn the car off and let it cool down for a little bit. And you can even wire it up into the oil light on your dash. So if that light comes on, the alarm will go off. The whole install should be pretty easy. It's just made to be undermounted, but I've got it in the housing here. It's 3 wires. We have the sensor wire, which is this one with a nice eyelet, so you can just bolt it on. Then we have a Siggy, which I'm gonna snip off, and I have my old UHF plug here, and that wire looks like the right gauge. I'll read it properly. I'll probably just chuck a fuse on there. And then we have engine oil light wire. I'm not too sure how to wire this one up, and if I'll have to like take the whole dash off, which I'm not overly keen on doing. At a minimum, the temperature sensor must be hooked up right now. I've just got some wire that I will hopefully pass through. And chuck it through the eyelet, give it a little fold. And hopefully I can just pull that through. I'm not entirely sure where you are supposed to put this. Like I'll have a look on their website or something. But if any of you have a better idea than what I do, leave the comment down below because it should be pretty easy to change, just undo a bolt. And now I have gone and taken one of the mounting bolts for the thermostat housing. So not this top one here, the one that actually mounts the thermostat to the cylinder head. But I gotta try to get this thing back in and it's really tightening. So I just quickly went and routed the wire through the engine bay and used some split tubing so it looks all neat and it shouldn't get like any interference from the exhaust or the cable melt through or anything like that. It should be good to go for many years. And then now I am just going to solder these wires together quickly. I also tested to make sure that this was a wire that was only active when the engine is running because I do not want this thing drawing battery all the time. Definitely giving myself lead poisoning here. I love when you actually remember to put heat shrink on your joints before you solder them. Very rare that I remember to do that. So the bird's nest is installed down there, but will it turn on? Accessories on. It's on, 27 degrees. And I didn't stuff up the wiring on the other gauge, perfect. And before I move on, I am going to tidy all this up, but that's not overly exciting. So I'll see you in 1 second. So I'm really sorry that this video is coming late, but the shop that did the engine rebuild had the car for like double the amount of time that I was supposed to have it. And this is my first time driving it. So it's definitely not got exhaust leak now. Like it sounds good, kind of. The injector pinging is definitely still there, which is very frustrating, but it feels way more planted on the road with the new alignment and the bearings not being so loose. So the real test for it is getting up to 80 Ks. For the most part, it feels like it has a fair bit more power because that exhaust leak is no longer there. So we're actually building some boost now. I say building some boost, like 5 PSI, but it definitely feels way better on the road. Like I'm not scared that I'm gonna float into oncoming traffic, which is definitely a good thing for a car, especially on these big tires. I was worried that it might have felt a little bit like floaty on the road still. All in all, success. I feel like this video has gone on for a very long time, but bear with me because it is about to get a bit more fun. But I just need to tick the last thing off this list, which is topping up the diff oil because a bit did leak out and it's going to be going into four-wheel drive. So I need to make sure that it's all topped up. And I do know that I should replace all of the diff oil. And the only reason I'm not doing that is because lockers are going in very soon. It feels like a bit of a waste to fill it up with fresh oil and then just drain it again. So we're just going for the top up. And I do have some brand new gaskets and fill bolts, whatever they're called. So I do not have to worry about rounding these things the next time I drain the diff oil. I've also started getting, ow, that hurt. I've also started getting some quotes for paint. So if any of you are in WA and are painters or have any recommendations for painters and people that do rust repair, give me a shout. Oh no. I need 6 pointers. These ones just absolutely cook everything. So if this doesn't work, I'm gonna have to go and buy a proper 6.23. Probably good to have one anyway. Excuse my butt. Oh, that was so incredibly lucky. That is definitely never going back in. And then now this is how tight it should be. That's it. I don't know why that was so over tight. Kind of almost forgot that this is my first time taking this thing off-road, so I should probably take some stuff in case something breaks. Spare tire, good start. Max Tracks, because I don't know how this thing is going to go in the sand. A couple of random tools and a really big shifter. Little toolbox with all the sockets and spanners. Random packing cube thing to put all the extra tools in. Even more tools. ARB compressor. Random stuff like cable ties and bits and pieces, hammer and rubber mallet, and pretty importantly, tire deflators and a tire gauge. And just extra in case, oil and coolant, because it would be a disaster if either of those decide to leave the car. And now it is finally time for the fun to begin. I'm hoping to find out if I have wasted my entire year worth of weekends, and honestly even weekdays, on this car. Talking learning how to pull an engine, spending a lot of money getting the engine rebuilt, learning how to do all the maintenance stuff like in this video, spending even more money, learning how to lift a car, spending even more money on that. Honestly, I've just spent a lot of money and I'm still really not even sure if this thing does any good off-road. So I think it's time I take it on my little test track that I've driven in my BT50 like 100 plus times and see how it handles itself. First impressions are that the suspension is definitely very bumpy, leaves to be expected. I did not lock the hubs. Oops. Back to what I was saying, the suspension's a little bit rough. Jeez, that was way harder than I was expecting. Oh, stinky. What was that? Sorry, yeah, the suspension's a bit rougher than I thought, but that is definitely my own fault. I have set this thing up for a bull bar and like a draw system in the back. So that I think the fronts maybe are like plus 100-ish with a winch, and the backs are I think plus 100, maybe plus 150. So when I have a bit of weight in there, it will actually have some spring to it, whereas at the moment it is definitely a bit rigid. Also, quietly, how sick does it sound? And save yourself the finger strength. I know what you're gonna say, driver error. I agree. I've not driven manual off-road since I was maybe 18, maybe 19, 8-9 years. I've got a bit of a learning curve here. I need to learn again. And speaking of which, I assume you don't want to hear me talking. You've been listening to me talk for the last 15 minutes. Let's just have some fun. This is a bit more like what I'm talking about. This is obstacle number 1. It's just a big set of ruts, but that will swallow my 35 pretty easily. And then we have the B line. So I have a crack at both. Oh, no way in hell am I doing that. I mean, we'll give it a crack. It's knee high. I could almost definitely, I can hide in it. That's funny. I have no idea what the hell is going to happen here. Mighty 60. No way, no way. What? How did that even get close? So we are in a little bit of mischief here. What's happening? This tire is spinning because it's just on the ledge, while that one is like doing a burnout. And then the opposite on the front, that one's spinning, this one's doing nothing. Because we have no down lockers, let's see what we can do here. Corey, always in mischief. What are you doing? That was not a good noise. Wheel lift. Oh my goodness, that was intense. Note to self, must install lockers. If I didn't foreshadow something going wrong before, this is cooked. Why did I pay 16 grand to have an engine rebuilt properly? And it's still great. That is all coolant dripping all out there. Pop the bloody bonnet, see what is going on. I think this is an engine off jobby. Ooh, there's a little bit of coolant up here around the overflow. A little bit of coolant on the overflow on the top. So I was thinking maybe it's like washed out, but inside the hose there, bone dry, dusty, red dust. Because it couldn't be a easy solution, could it? That would make too much sense. But I'm hoping it's just under here. Yeah, that tracks for about how much that's coming out. I'm really not sure what to do here. I run the risk that there's a coolant leak somewhere and absolutely blow it out. But I really do think that it is just the overflow that has a bit of coolant on there from like jostling around a bit. But I just really don't know if I'm gonna risk that. Not now, because I do know that there is a small coolant leak on this side of the engine, but that's nowhere near enough to like drip anywhere, which is also going back to the shop. And to add to the absolute shit show, see that little bit there? Got some on my finger. That looks a bit more like clean engine oil. Can't be water, don't have the aircon on, because it makes this thing rev too high. Like, I'm just hoping that it's that coolant there. I think I have to call it there. That's super disappointing, and I'm extremely sorry if you made it this far in the video wanting to see me send this thing. Hopefully that last little bit, scratch that itch. But if you like this video, the rest of it, you should go watch this one here where I install the lift kit. But if you're really keen to see that forward driving, you can watch this video here where I do this whole track in the BT and get bogged like 10 times or something.